When we were working on Splash Mountain, we had a rule that either a critter made it or a human made it. And so humans use saws and hammers, and critters use their teeth and they lash things. And so that seems stupidly simple, but when you're 3 years in and there's a fabricator in some, vendor who's off somewhere who has to make a decision, they've been graced with this simple storyline, they'll come back and they will argue your design principle to you. They'll say, now see what I did right here? So this beaver, he was building this thing and he was chewing on this end and he was wrapping this other end. And really, as an art director, you just smile and praise. That's all you do, is that they're running with this simple rule. Now, if there was no rule and it was just like, I don't know, just make it nice. It doesn't allow them to be a participant in it because they don't know what they're delivering.
I love that. It reminds me a little, because to me I hear a little bit like, okay, you say that the critters made this with their teeth, and then you combine that with mailbox, for example, and you go, okay, what would a mailbox that was made with the teeth
a beaver
look like? And those two things produce a third idea by combining them. I remember talking to Bob Peterson one time at Pixar, who's among other things was the voice of Doug and Roz and Monsters Inc. And he was talking about when he wrote a comic strip in college. He said he used to sometimes, as a way to generate ideas, put a bunch of words in a hat and pull out two, and maybe you get penguin and bowling. And then he would think about a penguin bowling, and then this third thing would emerge from thinking about that relationship. And you'd think, well, what if the gutters are iced over? What if the ball's a snowball? What if the other pins are penguins? And just from picking two things like that and the combination, you notice how generative an idea can be. But if it's like two pinned down ahead of time and that combination is already done, I also think like artists don't get to have that feeling of ownership of like, I combined and synthesized this new thing and I'm excited to bring it into the world, partially because I was involved in birthing it and I want to realize this. And I think you can people get more ownership and people can feel more proud of what they're doing when it's not so overspecified, I guess.
Yeah, I brought something over from the theme park world, which is a design intent document, which is written early on when you're handing it over to other people. It's usually a 3 or 4 or 5 page document that talks about the simple rules. But the most important thing is the first paragraph, which says, this is a design intent. It isn't the design, and that it is open for argument and interpretation, so that when you have it and it's your hands and you disagree, let's have a conversation and change it. It amazingly, it changes very little, because really what people want to know is what are the parameters and how can I riff within them. And so where it fails is when that design document doesn't give that freedom, that it's too rigid. So these are the rules. Well, and I have a quick story. When we were working on Splash, there was a guy who was hired for a day to paint a wall in Splash, Florida. And I walked up and they said, well, what do you think? Should it be this color or this color? And I said, well, I don't know, brown, I guess. And this painter, who was only there for a day, pulled out of his back pocket the design intent I had written 3 years earlier, and it was all dog-eared, and he said, no. He said, it has to be green because, and then he basically schooled me in my own design principle. Awesome. And it was like, yes. And I knew that guy, when this thing opened, would take his family to Splash and go, I worked on this. I made the decision. That wall's green because I had an opinion about it. But that opinion was referencing the goals of the project to begin with. So it designs itself.
Yep. And frankly, hearing you be excited about that, first of all, that's, I think, something you tend to get in a really great, creative, empathetic leader who's thinking about the team feeling that way. And it also makes me think, Luca saying earlier that one of your superpowers was being able to sort of hold things loosely enough that when it's not the idea, you can sort of move on to the next one. I can certainly say from talking to you, I've always gotten that joyfulness and playfulness of just not taking any given things so seriously that it can't be reconsidered. And I even hear that in saying, this is a design intent. I think, well, just for Don would know this, but I had given a talk about the emotion of awe to the Mighty Coconut folks a couple days ago, and about trying to how you might make people feel awe in a film and that type of thing. And one day I added a slide at the beginning of it that said that this talk is my best wrong answer so far. Mm-hmm. I felt a lot more comfortable about giving the talk after adding that, because sometimes I feel like when you make a thing like a big design document or a talk, it comes with all this almost this implication that like it's coming from a person who knows for sure, and these are the rules and this is the way it is. And I suppose there's a balance there of, if you're too open about that, you can leave too much freedom, and if you're too certain about it, then there's no wiggle room. So I don't know, there's I almost most prefer the we're definitely going to try moving in this direction, but we don't have to be absolutely sure that everything about that is right, and we can change our path while we're on the road.
Yeah, I think as young designers, we dream that we will be the captain of the ship and every decision will be ours, and to bring in other decisions somehow sullies our vision. And I think all it takes is to do a project where that was true, that comes out flat, two-dimensional, and you realize that I've cheated it out of the magic that collaboration would bring it. That as you get older, you go, no, it's not mine, it's ours, and I trust you. And there have been times where people have made decisions where I've been kind of vocal about and kind of bitchy about, I don't think that works. And it ends up being my favorite thing later, because it isn't based upon something I would choose. It's based upon the complexity of the meal and the spices that I would never have used before that makes the meal special and new and delicious.
Absolutely. I love it. And of course, sometimes those are the things that you can, react that way to, because they're sort of outside of what makes sense to your filter. But especially when you're making something that such a huge variety of people are going to take in, I think it's especially important to sort of, have as many different perspectives contribute to saying wouldn't it feel a little better like this? And I almost think about it as improving the immune system of the project in a way. It's
exactly right.
Testing it against all these different perspectives.
Expose it to all the ideas.
Different viruses of different consciousnesses. It's the least romantic way I could describe the creative process. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be an interesting hole.
Wait, I'm forgetting, Don, have you already mentioned the, just the different the time scale of how it has felt working, with this kind of a course every 7 weeks turnaround against?
Well, it does mean that we have zero downtime because we're constantly working on stuff. Well, we've all come to sort of that's just the way we live our lives. The challenge with a film or a theme park where you're working maybe 5 years on a project, and the sheer number of hands it has to go through. So in a theme park, you might have half a dozen people at the beginning, but you'll have 3,000 by the end.
I never knew it was that big. That's wild.
They get I figured just the construction crew and all the rock work and all those things that have to be seen. But it's like something gets polished and polished and polished and polished, and you end up with a jewel, but you've lost some of the looseness and serendipity that happens in a design when it's closer to its creation time. And so what I love about the stuff we do at Walkabout is that you can still feel the messiness of the concept in the finished product, because there hasn't been that many hands and it hasn't been 5 years of development.
Where you've had to be 3 different people during the course of making the thing.
Well, something I've noticed in the game industry too is, and I can imagine theme parks and films are similar too, is that familiarity breeds contempt. And so something you loved 2 years ago all of a sudden doesn't feel fresh because you've been thinking about it for 2 years, and inevitably
Especially
someone
with
comes in and says, let's scrap this thing because that's boring and I'm used to it.
Yep.
Like, no, that's the core of why we did this project. You don't do
Especially
that
with
when
jokes.
yeah. There's no time for
like,
us to question it.
Yeah.
We just got to get this course out.
Totally. And I think things like comedy where it's about surprise are effective, are especially awful for trying to maintain that. And actually, one of the things I remember when I first saw the first Lego movie, I thought one of the things I love the most about this is it it has moments of spontaneity that feel like you just picked up a toy and went and made the voice yourself, and the discipline required to work on something that takes that long and still have it feel as sort of like everyday and spontaneous as just like a moment of silly play like that. I love their commitment to keeping it at that level of casual, because it's so hard when there's that much polishing. And when it comes to this course, I'm curious, like this came out a few days ago, right? Like how far removed are we from the first day you spent in Gravity Sketch, like sketching this concept up?
If you saw my napkin sketch, you would think I did a bad drawing of this finished course. They're not always like this. This one just fell into place, and it was just a matter of doing it. We have other ones that evolve quite a lot as through the process. But even in our short production cycle, you can lose perspective, and there have been courses that we think, okay, this is the one that's going to end us, this is the one no one's going to like. And we're a little surprised that people like it. we're a little like, oh gosh, I'm so happy everybody liked it, because that was the intent, but we had no idea if you would.
Mighty Coconut, you're just going to have to accept that we love you.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
all right.
We'll try our best.
Nice shot.
Oh,
brutal.
Almost.
Okay.
Oops. Phew. Yay. Okay. So I think we're on 9. Where is 9?
Oh, I know another thing I wanted to ask you is whether I've always imagined that if I was working on an attraction in Imagineering, that some of the ideas I got the most excited about would turn out to be too expensive, or they'd break too readily, or they wouldn't hold up to the exploring hands of 2 million 9-year-olds. Right. I'm wondering if there's been any of a freeing feeling to not have to think about some of those practical concerns when you have ideas for Walkabout.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, you have no idea. ADA requirements and OSHA requirements and safety requirements and reality of breakability and there's also a pressure too, which I don't think people talk a lot about, is we're Imagineering, we're the dreamers. So we're going to do this risky, we're going to have a 20-foot tall Yeti, that's gonna move in ways that we've never done before. And then you discover it's going to tear the building apart or itself apart, and we turn it off. It was a bold dream, but a very expensive lesson.
I remember when I was little reading something when Expedition Everest was opening, when Test Track was opening, and one of the designers saying, like, you don't just get to go down the street to Phil's quick opening door shop and and buy this thing that's never existed. The point is that you're supposed to be putting someone in a space that's on the frontier of possibility, and they've not been in before. And I imagine, in building my syringe instrument, there's been lots of times I've been talking to a manufacturer about using some part for something they clearly never had any intention of it being used for, and they're like, I guess, go nuts, but it's not for musical syringes. I imagine there are a lot of turned heads like that in when you're sourcing things for a 20-foot Yeti.
Well, and if you've had done any housework or any construction on your house, you know that anything that's not standard is the most expensive thing ever. Like, even if you want, I'd like this window to be round. Oh my goodness, you're
Yes.
talking about 10 times more
Yes.
expensive than a standard thing. Well, go build Everest or build Toontown, where there's literally nothing you can get at Home Depot, and the price just skyrockets.
Well, but maybe to bring it to this question of or like this, some of the things I was chatting with you all about awe and the emotion of awe. I think because it's something that you often most feel when you're having an experience that you can't tune out, where you don't go, oh, here's my bedroom again. I see this every day. I get it.
Right.
Okay, here I've walked into yet another room and the furniture is not hovering in the air because of gravity. Oh boy.
Right.
I'm not surprised. I get it. You know, once you go to a magic show and things start floating and now you perk up a little because you're not seeing it all the time. I remember when it comes to the architecture thing, I remember the first time I went to Barcelona and saw some Gaudi work,
Mhm.
and I was like, this guy, this is the business. Like he is molding his own bricks and like molding down to sort of saying like, nope, we're not going to say what can we make out of the Legos. We're going to make new Legos, and we're going to make Legos that don't look like Legos. It's going to be an enormous pain. It's going to take longer than I'm going to be alive. But if we do it and we show what we came back with from committing that hard, the experience of seeing it's going to be unlike anything else. Definitionally, we're going to be coming back from a territory that other people haven't been in already. And I think
that's my experience with working with Meow Wolf is, when Katie Kennedy took us into Numina in Denver and said, this isn't a space jungle or a swamp, it's a sixth-dimensional being that we're inside of, you go,
I love it.
Okay. So let's jump down to one real quick.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, totally. And kind of to your point about like combining things too. That's a very, like a homemade beaver mailbox. This is a six-dimensional creature. It sure is a fun prompt to go, okay, so what would that then mean? It gives you a lot of things to combine that with and riff on.
But interestingly, people playing the mini golf version, the Walkabout's version of Meow Wolf, there's no placard at the beginning saying, hey, welcome to this sixth-dimensional being. It's just a design principle that we based on our choices as we built it, but it's not imperative that you understand that. Same with Meow Wolf, that it allows people to come up to their own conclusion, and if they choose to dig deep enough or scratch through the surface, there is depth to find in that story, but the depth isn't a necessity to your enjoyment.
Yes, I love that. And I also think it makes me think about how to your point about when a designer has that pride of like, I made this decision and I was responding to these guidelines, but I feel this like sense of ownership over that thing. I remember reading sort of an article from someone who designs escape rooms, who was talking about how if you don't leave enough work for the sort of the audience or the guest to do themselves, because you're worried as a designer that they're not going to get it. So you put everything in writing. You just make it so clear, like, this is what's going on. Don't forget, this is where you are. This is why you're here. This is what you need to achieve. That there's an amount of hand-holding there that's so much out of the anxiety of maybe the person will be disoriented, that you leave no work or discovery for them to do, and they can't make it their own. Sometimes I'll go to a movie and be like, why do I even need to be here?
Right.
Like,
We watched the trailer.
The
trailer's told you everything.
They're telling me how they feel. Nothing's ambiguous. It's just like right down the middle. And I was thinking, I told the story the other day, but Pixar, actually, we have we've done it twice now, the Pixar Classic, we call it, where any team that wants to can make a mini golf hole, and we'll set them up and then take like the second half of a Friday and go through and play the course. And I realized it's been one of my favorite things, just like Halloween. Halloween's a big deal at Pixar too, and just any opportunity to make something and do something creative is usually a big hit. But related to this idea of like making the discovery on your own. My team made this hole where we called it In Space No One Can Hear You Golf. And you would go into this totally dark room. We taped over every LED on every computer and blacked it out. And we had a microphone set up so that if you made any noise at all, a light would come on, sort of a very bright halogen work light would come on proportional. So if you went, there'd be a little glow. And then if you screamed, it'd be bright enough to see the hole. But you'd come to the conclusion on your own that if you didn't scream as loud as you could the entire time you were playing, you wouldn't be able to see the hole. And we had this discussion about, should we put a sign out front that explains, like, you're about to go into a dark room and the sound is proportional to, and the light's going to come on if you make noise. And, and there were some folks who were worried about, if we don't put that, will people get it? Will they understand it? Like, shouldn't we give that to them so that they don't go in and feel uncertainty? But it's like, well, a lot of times the safe amount of uncertainty is the thing that makes it entertaining, and also is the reward for the discovery is that uncertainty going away a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And it feels stronger in contrast to just having had the uncertainty. So when we watch people go into that room, even if they waited longer than other groups to say, hey, what's going on? Then they'd start to see the light come on, and then you'd hear them go, and have an epiphany, and then their epiphany would make the lights come on. And we noticed that I think because people felt like they owned that discovery, it was more important to them.
That's exactly right. They came to the punchline, and then they can tell others. I think our multiplayer benefits tremendous. For the guy who finds the skeleton reaching for the mask in El Dorado gets to go, hey guys, look what I discovered. It allows them to have some ownership of the story that's unfolding.
I love that. And I think, it's such a generous and great thing that the guest pass that you guys have. Like, I love getting in a quick match with someone, finding out they just got the game, and then saying like, I got to show you this. Come on, you got to come see Meow. It's my favorite. And frankly, it reminds me of, being such a theme parks nerd. There are a lot of things about going to Disneyland that have worn off on me, but the vicarious experience of, I want to share this with you, I want to take you here and watch how it makes you feel, I totally get in this game.
Same.
Yeah.
So we could do this for another 8 hours, I think. But I think Wesley, our camera person, and probably the audience that's watching are probably getting a little fatigued.
Sorry, audience.
So
we had fun.
So I would love to do this anytime again with you.
Same here.
So, but for now, let's sort of wrap it up. And thank you, Michael, so much for being here and geeking out on stuff that we think is important. And we really tried desperately to imbue all of our courses, these that we've built, and the many we're currently working on.
Well, it sure comes through, and I really appreciate you guys making this. I love having something to rave about, and I truly don't think was not paid to say this, audience. I honestly don't think I go through a day where I don't tell somebody about this game, and it's just a testament to how happy I am in these spaces. So thank you for making such a joyful thing.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks everybody for following along. And we'll see you next time.